Okay, so I promised you guys a couple case studies on how I've been able to take students into my program who've never done sales before, have had zero experience, have done nothing even remotely close to what we're doing now, and are now able to make a good income, whether that's now working, as a side hustle, whether this has now become their full-time income, whatever the case is, right? It's different for everybody. So today I have Michael joining me. Michael's one of my top students now. He makes a lot of money, but most importantly, he is super, super young. So I'm not going to take up too much time here. I'm going to ask Michael a couple questions, almost like a little podcast here. And you guys will see what he's been able to do, how long it took him, and hopefully it'll give you guys a little bit of inspiration here. So, Michael, why don't you start this out? Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into this, what you're doing now, how much you're making now, and I'll ask you a few more questions after.
100%. Yeah, I mean,
Here, come closer to the mic so everyone hears you.
Mic check.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my family came to Canada. I was an immigrant, firstborn here. So obviously, my parents want me to, get into the corporate world, get a job, go to school, typical thing. And
been there.
Yeah, and I was kind of going down that path. I never really knew what I wanted to do. Never really had any, clarity or anything that really excited me. And I was in school for a little while. And probably about halfway through my first year of school, when I was like 18, 19 at the time,
right,
I came across you on social media. I saw what you were doing, and I thought I'd give it a shot. I was never really like a really extroverted person. I wasn't great at talking, anything like that. But I think I either from what you had out there, from what you told me, I found out that I can make $100 on a single sales call. Right?
Even more, oftentimes. More, right?
Exactly, right? But like at the time, obviously my skill wasn't there, but I found out, okay, I can make $100 in commission in 30 minutes. And I started doing that part-time. Right? Well, actually, I should backtrack, right? First I started working with you. It definitely took me a couple of weeks to really get the hang of it. Ended up doing some outreach, finding some clients out there. Long story short, I found one. I was doing it part time while I was in school, sales, taking.
So what was that like when you were still in school and balancing sales? What was it like after school? Like, what were your hours like? Because a lot of people who are joining us, they're working jobs, right? And yes, our program is great and we give a lot of value and we train people, but I would never expect anyone to leave a job where all their bills are paid, everything's comfortable, to do something they've never done. So when you started, what were your hours actually like?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny actually. I used to because I was in a business program at the time, and the work was pretty heavy. I used to take calls in between my classes. I'd have like an hour or two free, and then I'd just hop on some calls, dial some leads. I wasn't making the money I am now, but I was able to make money, right? On an hour a day of work, 2 hours a day of work, right? Mm-hmm. And just from seeing the potential, seeing the money I was making in that short amount of time, that's. After about 6 months doing it, that's when I realized I wanted to take it further, take it to that next level. Long story short, here I am.
Yeah, so I remember even when you were working part-time, you were closing 2 or 3 deals a day, right? So 2, 3 deals a day, let's just say very bottom, low, relatively low ticket, a couple $1,000, at a 10% commission, which also is pretty low with good clients, right? Making a couple $100 a call, $150, $200 a call, right? You're doing that 7 days a week. That adds up. That's like $4 or $5 grand a month you were making on 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week. Yeah. I remember when you called me and you're like, yo, what should I do? Should I drop out? Should I stay in school? Should I do this? Should I do that? And that's really the relationship I have, by the way, with everybody who's in my coaching program. Yes, I'm a sales coach and you're coaching the program and I'm a sales trainer and whatnot. But a lot of the people that come to me, especially, young students, they kind of come to me and ask for advice, almost like life advice, because I went through the same thing. I dropped out of university, went to a great school, had a lot of good opportunities, had great grades in school, but, I went down that same road. I made a lot of money in my first year in college when I realized it was time for me to do this full time and take it seriously. Okay, good. Now, let me ask you, Michael, in terms of in terms of getting started, what would you say was your biggest challenge? Like, why, what was the hardest part for you? Aside from, school and everything and balancing everything, what was the most difficult, most challenging thing as a complete beginner?
I think, because there's always those leads who are just going to buy, right?
Yeah.
You get to know them, you have, a decent conversation with them, you pitch them, and it's a pretty easy sale, right? So those were never really a big deal, but it was, the next step, right? I think like objection handling, like higher ticket deals,
when you start getting some friction, some pushback from leads.
100%, and especially when I start talking to people who actually have serious money and they're looking to take it to the next level. And, I'm here, still trying to make my own bag,
Right.
and just gaining their respect on the call. I think that was probably the biggest step that I took, to kind of just overall leveling up, with what I do now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say that just like higher ticket deals, higher,
just pushing to that next level, right? Yeah, for sure. And I think, that's part of the nature of this business. It's like, because I built such a great company, I have an amazing sales agency. We bring the best results. We have some of the highest caliber, most well-known influencers that I guarantee you guys, watching this training, watching this case study, have seen. There's always going to be leads who are just ready to pay money, right? There's always going to be leads who are ready to just invest $5,000 or $10,000 or $2,000 or $5,000 or $3,000 or $10,000 into a mastermind, just because of the level and the caliber of people that we're able to work with. But really, it's like, here's the thing. At the end of the day, if you're an order taker, you'll make $5,000 or $10,000 a month. If you want to push to that next level, make $20,000 a month, $30,000 a month, make serious commissions, you got to have skill. You have to understand buyer psychology. You have to understand high level communication, right? Both, the words you say and even subconscious communication when you're on Zoom calls. Right, so it's like not getting complacent at $5,000 or $10,000 a month and pushing to that next level, for sure. Okay, good. So that was your biggest challenge at first, and then so why don't you tell people a little bit about how you started? It just so happens that you were in the same city as me. I think that's probably why you came across my Instagram. I was, when I started, and I still am for the most part, based in Toronto. But why don't you tell people a little bit about the story about how you were in school, then you came across what I have to offer. You wanted to really get more training, and that's why you decided to come in and work in my office.
I mean, for me, to be honest, going all in on this, like after getting into the game, getting on calls, seeing what's possible and, what's next, it was a pretty easy decision, just going all in on it. Just because, this is actually something that, aside from the money, like it's actually an interesting thing. It's something that like I want to get better at. Like, I've always been big into sports, right? And sales is kind of like a sport, more work, attention to detail, the more practice you put in. If you outwork the next day, you're going to be better than them, no matter, where you start from,
Yeah. I mean, that's 100% true. It's 100% a sport. It's a fucking full contact sport. And it's not a practice twice a day sport. It's 24/7. If I have a lead calling me right now, I don't really do much closing myself anymore. But if I got a lead calling me right now in the middle of this case study interview we're recording, you better believe I'm picking up that fucking phone, right? It's a 24/7 grind, right? Now, that's not to say that you need to be on your phone 24/7. But really, once you get to that next level and you're making $20,000, $30,000 a month, like you got to be there and you got to be available. Mentally, emotionally, and physically present to close deals and make that money, right?
It's also something you want to do too. Mm-hmm. Like if a lead calls me up, it's 9, 10 p.m.
Yeah.
And I've been talking to them for a while. We haven't been able to get on a call. Like, it's like, do I want to just lay down and watch a video or close the deal and make some money, I mean, I think when you really get into it, it becomes fun, it's enjoyable.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And I mean, as you grow and you develop, it almost becomes a little bit of a game, right? It's like a mental game. Like, how far can you push yourself, right? Day in and day out. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So when you started, you went through my training. That took you a few weeks. You haven't, at that point, fully gone through all the training, right? You were just getting started. We set you up with a client within a few weeks, and that was an okay client. And then you got into my coaching program, right? And then that's when we really took it to the next level. Because at the end of the day, like for, the $47 course is great, but if you want to be at that next level, you should consider taking the coaching program. And once you go through the coaching program, I put my reputation on the line, because instead of you going out looking for a client, I will hand off a client that reaches out to me, right? So why don't you talk a little bit about that transition on how you came in and then we paired you up with a new client and you went from making, 4 or 5 grand a month to 15, 20.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important step in making that happen is just being like around you, like just talking to you, hearing your calls, role playing with you, because at a certain point, right, like you can read the script 100 times, you're not going to get any better.
Of course.
Like you need someone who's already done what you want to achieve to tell you how to be better, right? And,
100%.
And like sometimes it's not comfortable, sometimes, especially early on, like it wasn't easy to give you call recordings and have you just rip me apart and tell me where I went wrong. But it was like I had to do it. That's how you
get better,
right?
Yeah, and it's pretty funny because when I first launched this program a couple of years back, we had some people go through the program and they didn't like that I was criticizing them, Yeah, and I'm like, motherfuckers, if you want to make serious money, like you got to learn, and that goes. And what you said earlier about like, just being around me, that goes for all mentors in life. Like I started young, right? I fully immersed myself in sales. I learned from every single person who's done well in sales that I possibly could, whether that be car sales, insurance sales, mortgage, real estate, you name it. Like I just fully immersed myself into the art of sales, right? And I did whatever I possibly could to learn from everybody who's steps ahead, right? So it's like for you guys, like, yes, go through my course, go through my training, but I want, that's only going to get you to a certain amount, right? You really got to immerse yourself and almost kind of fall in love with the art of sales to take it to that next level, right? If you are, if you want to be in the coaching program, you got to be ready. In the coaching program, we do multiple calls every single week. I know some masterminds, they do like 1 call a month, which is, in my opinion, absolutely bullshit because that's not going to get you very far. We do 3 calls every single week, including one-on-one calls, right? And the reality of it is, if I listen to your call recordings, so you could send me recordings of your real sales calls, and I'll tell you, this is where you fucked up. This is where you did well. This is where you kind of created some hesitancy or some friction with a customer, with a prospect. So I will tell you, and by the way, Michael's also helping me coach in the program because he's done incredibly well, and a few of my other top producers. Like, we will analyze your calls and tell you what you do well, what you didn't do well, where you can improve, because at the end of the day, like, you need somebody who can point out what you're doing well, what you're not doing well. So you could take your commissions from 2,000 to 3,000, 5,000 a month to 10, and then from 10 to 15, 15, 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 50, right? So yeah, that's definitely huge. What would you say now, Michael, is kind of, give me 2 reasons why you've been able to succeed now, whether that be, a mindset thing, whether that be any other factors, like why are you successful, today, right? Whatever that is, right? Why don't you give us some factors so people can kind of make changes and do what you did?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's peaks and valleys, right? And I think, just with sales, how, there's such high highs and there's such low lows. If you're crushing it, if you're closing, if you're making money, it feels amazing. And if you're closing less or you're not closing, it's not easy, right? I think, just staying consistent to the process, just trusting that, my work ethic is going to get me to the top, because like you knew me, right? When I came in for the first time, right? When we first started talking, right? I mean, I wasn't super outgoing, I was always kind of an introverted person.
And it's, what? Actually, we'll do a separate video. We're going to talk about this too, but like, some people think that to be in sales, you got to be an extroverted person, which is not fucking true whatsoever. You're pretty introverted. I am a trained extrovert. So I'm naturally introverted. I always have been, right? But I trained myself to become an extrovert. You're still introverted, right? Definitely, completely. Which is so, I think introverts actually do better in sales because they don't fucking talk the whole time. They listen. And that's what is super important to succeed in sales. Everyone thinks that they just got to talk about how great their product is and they're going to get sales. Other way around. It's about listening. So 100%. And what you said, the other thing about mindset, like, you're absolutely right. There's highs and lows. There's peaks and valleys. There's going to be ups. There's going to be downs, right? That's the fucking reality of it. But when it comes down to it, it's like you got to be able to keep the highs as long as possible and the lows as short as possible, right? Which really just comes down to a mindset thing. What's one more thing that allowed you to succeed?
I mean, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Like that one's important. I think aside from that, I think what separates me from other people who, do sales is just just attention to detail, like even with where I'm at now, like I'm not satisfied, like I want to be better. Like I know that I have certain strengths, I'm really good at certain things, and I know I have certain weaknesses, right? And so understanding those things and just being analytical about it, treating it like a science, like every day what I do is I'll write down I'll literally write down like 3 or 4 notes, right? Something that takes me like 30 seconds. Yeah. But just taking that time to just reflect on, hey, like I did this really well. Like my intros were great. I built great connections. But maybe at the end, like I rushed it, or maybe I didn't like drop my tone when I'm handling an objection, right? Like I think little things like that, if you put attention to them every single day, in the long run, like that's, what's allowed me to separate myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And that's actually a good one because a lot of people, they start doing this, they make some money, they get to whatever their goal is, let's say $7,000 a month. And then there's no constant improvement. They're not trying to get better, right? And it was actually the part, I was very similar when I started. Every single day, I was doing calls for a long time. I would tap out, 10 p.m., 11 p.m., but I would always, every day, take 3 call recordings or 4 call recordings. It was usually 2 that I didn't close and 1 that I did close. You got to reflect. Look, you got to reflect on your wins and your losses, right? Success leaves clues and failure leaves clues. So I would always reflect on the calls that I didn't close. I would always think about what could I have done better. I would review the calls, see what I could have done better. And then the calls that I did close, I would always go back and, see what did I do right here that I could translate into my calls the next day. So it was constantly I was trying to improve, constantly trying to get better. You were the same. You guys should be the same, right? You gotta, and like you said, it's almost a science, right? It is a science. Sales is 50% science, 50% art, right? You have to understand buyer psychology. You have to understand communication techniques. But you also need to realize that every single buyer is different. Every single prospect is different. Everyone has different paths, different values, different pain points, different trigger points, right? So you need to understand that and be able to adjust call to call. Okay. So that's about it. Michael came into my agency after working remotely for about 5-6 months. Went through my whole program, went through my coaching, came in, did role plays with us, took my advanced coaching, invested some money into himself. And once I knew that Michael's good, I brought him into my office because he just happens to live in the same city as me. And yeah, I mean, the rest is history. You went from making $5,000 a month to 15, 20, 25. You have, obviously there's higher and lower months, but you obviously make more money than any 20-year-old makes now, right? Yep. I know your friends from university are probably a little bit jealous, but that's okay. Good. Okay. So that's going to be the end of this case study. That's how Michael did it. Those are some of his words of wisdom. We're going to do another one. Maybe another couple case studies so you guys can get some feedback and see, what it takes and what's important. Okay? I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.